On the 7th of December 1971, Christmas was coming up soon, and winter in Westfield, New Jersey was getting close to its worst. Did the peaceful town of Westfield, New Jersey, witness a horrifying event on that cold December night in 1971? Was the List family's joy and excitement for Christmas overshadowed by fear and horror? When the police discovered the lifeless bodies of 5 family members, was it the intriguing bust sculpted by Frank Bender that ultimately led a neighbor, Wanda Flannery, to suspect her own neighbor, Bob Clark, of being the fugitive John List? And was Bob Clark truly the elusive John List, responsible for the heinous crime that shocked the nation and left an enduring enigma? Hi, and welcome back to our channel. If you are new here, please consider subscribing, as it helps us motivate to create more intriguing content for you. Let's have a look at the unusual enigma surrounding the case of List family. Westfield, New Jersey, is a classic town for modern families. It is known for its beautiful center area, great schools, and easy access to New York City. It gives people a nice place to live in the suburbs and an easy way to get to New York City. Homes in the Victorian and colonial styles and wide streets lined with trees show how old the town is. Its full landscape also includes lush parks, golf courses, and a huge number of places for kids and people to have fun. All of the people who live in Westfield are happy to call it home. In Westfield, Christmas is a magical time of year, filled with joy, warmth, and festive spirit. As December approaches, the town transforms into a winter wonderland, with decorations adorning the streets, shops, and homes. The community comes alive with excitement and anticipation for the upcoming holiday. The residents of Westfield take great pride in their Christmas traditions. Families gather to decorate their homes with twinkling lights, wreaths, and cheerful ornaments. The town center becomes a hub of activity, bustling with shoppers seeking the perfect gifts for their loved ones. Local businesses and organizations host various events to spread holiday cheer. Christmas markets, craft fairs, and tree lighting ceremonies bring the community together in a celebration of unity and togetherness. Children eagerly await the arrival of Santa Claus, who makes appearances at various events throughout the town. Excited laughter fills the air as kids whisper their wishes into Santa's ear, hoping that their dreams will come true on Christmas morning. The spirit of giving is alive and well in Westfield, with various charitable initiatives and food drives helping those in need during the holiday season. The town's residents come together to support one another, embodying the true meaning of Christmas. However, a horrible crime that happened there in 1971 has left a deep mark on this small, beautiful town. The List family's terrible end happened in the town of Westfield. John Amer List was born on September 17, 1925. His parents, John Frederick List and Alma Barbara Florence List, were both evangelical Lutherans and came from German immigrants. John's father was already 66 years old when he was born, and his mother was 38. John E. List grew up in Bay City, Michigan, with parents who were very religious and moralistic. Because of this, his interaction with them became tense. John's father had no interest in raising him, so it was up to his mother to raise him. John's mother made him go to church every week and told him he could not get dirty, do anything even slightly risky, or play with kids Alma did not think were good enough. John grew up in a very strict and conservative setting, which made him a shy, nervous young man who was not very popular with his peers. John joined the U.S. Army when he was 18 years old. He joined the Army in 1943, just a year before his father died in 1944. He went back to his hometown to work for a business that did accounting. Later, he became a supervisor at a company that made paper. John met Helen Morris Taylor in 1951, when he was 26 years old. Helen was married to a war hero named Marvin Everett Taylor, who had died earlier that year. She also had a daughter with him whose name was Brenda Joyce Taylor. John and Helen liked each other right away, and a month after they met, Helen told John she was pregnant. They got married quickly the same year, and Helen's worry that she was pregnant turned out to be unfounded. John also learned about Helen's health problems after they were married. Helen got syphilis from her first husband, but she was not contagious when she married John. After a rough start, John and Helen got their lives together, moved to Michigan, and had their first child, a girl they named Patricia Moore's List, or just Patty, on January 8, 1955. Then, on October 21, 1956, they had a boy. They named him John Frederick List after his grandpa, but his friends and family called him John Jr. after Frederick Michael List. Their third and last child was born on August 26, 1958. Helen became addicted to booze and antidepressants. She even stopped going to church because she did not agree with the way John lived his holy life. Around the same time, Helen's first daughter, Brenda, got pregnant at 16 and was sent to a home for unwed moms. John moved to New Jersey and bought a house so that he could make things better for his family and keep them happy. He asked his mother for help paying the house's debt. Alma said yes, but only if she could move in with them as well. Even though Helen and Alma did not agree with each other and did not like each other, the idea of living in a house made them put their differences behind them. The List family moved into a 19-room Victorian house in Westfield, New Jersey, at 431 Hillside in 1965. It was known as Breeze Knoll. John also got a job as a vice manager at a bank close by. The List family looked like the perfect American family from the outside. John Lewis taught Sunday school at his church, and his family never missed a Sunday service. John was always worried about how his family looked to other people. Things finally looked good for the List family after a long time, but the List family's happiness did not last long. The crime scene. The List family's neighbors became worried when they had not seen any of them for a month at the beginning of December 1971. There had been no movement in or around the mansion either. At first, the neighbors thought the family was on holiday, but they became suspicious when they saw that all the lights in the mansion were always on and were now starting to burn out. As more and more doubts came up, they got worried and chose to tell the police on December 7, 1971. Shortly after that, the cops showed up, and a bunch of officers were looking around the mansion. Since the front door was locked and no one was home, they went through an open window. The weather inside was almost as cold as it was outside. The radio was playing loud church music, and the whole mansion smelled like rotting flesh. Officer Charlie Holler was looking through the 19 rooms of the house when he found something horrible in the ballroom. Helen, Patricia, John Jr., and Frederick were all dead. Their bodies were on sleeping bags on the floor next to each other. All of the bodies looked like they had been shot, and the faces were all covered. He cleaned up a lot of the blood, and he had bags with bloody bandages and rags. The gory details of the killings of the List family were like scenes from a psychological thriller. Officer Charlie Hollard had never seen anything as scary as what he saw that night. He told the other police officers and kept looking at the scene. Blood trails led to the kitchen, where the cops found a mop covered in blood and paper bags full of bloody towels. Alma List, who was 84 years old, was found dead in the mansion's attic on the 3rd floor. She had a towel over her face. The cops found the bodies of 5 members of the List family, but the 6th member, John List, is still missing. John's room had 2 weapons and a 5-page letter. The police also noticed that all the family pictures they found in the house were strange. All the shots were missing John's face. John did not leave anything behind, and no one could find him. During the investigation, the officers looked at the blood trail that led to the kitchen and came to the conclusion that the victims were killed there and their bodies were dragged to the ballroom. The police had autopsies done on all of the bodies of the List family members and started looking at the physical proof. At the scene of the crime, police found a semi-automatic Steyr 1912 pistol with a 9mm barrel and a revolver. Fingerprints of the killer were taken from the guns and kept. The .22 caliber pistol belonged to John's father, but John bought it under his name on October 14, 1971. The agents thought that this meant John had probably been planning this massacre for a long time. At first, They did not know if John was a victim or the killer, but the letter they found in his room proved that he was the one who killed his family. The letter was written by John himself. The last line, "Kill your mother, your wife, and your 3 kids," is hard for anyone who knew John List to understand. All of them said the same thing. How could he have done this? Why did he do it? The letter was sent to Eugene A. Raywinkle, the pastor of the List family, on November 7, 1971. In the letter, John said that he had killed his own family. He also gave the pastor the phone numbers and email addresses of some cousins and friends so that the pastor could reach out to them and tell them what had happened. Well, every Sunday, he and the kids went to church. He taught Sunday school in the past. John also said that Helen, the kids, and themselves all wanted to be burned. In the letter, John asked the minister to plan the funeral for his family and keep the costs as low as possible. When the police started talking to the List family's neighbors, they found out that the family's good image was a lie. What really happened inside the house painted a very different picture. At first, the List family's neighbors thought they were the perfect American family who had everything. When they first moved into the house, their neighbors liked them because they were responsible, moral, and religious. Soon, everyone in the neighborhood saw that the List family was not as perfect as they had thought. Their neighbors thought they were a very religious family with tight morals, but they also saw that they were not very friendly and were a bit strange. Everyone noticed John E. List in particular. When a neighbor brought John a pie to welcome him to the neighborhood, John told the neighbor that the List family was not friendly, but he still ate the pie. Everyone in the area thought John was strange and very rude. Some of his neighbors remembered seeing him mow the lawn one hot summer day while wearing a tux. Many people saw this happen more than once. One of Patricia's school friends told the cops that John did not like a t-shirt she was wearing at one point. He tore Patricia's t-shirt off while yelling at her. Patricia thought her father did not like her. In a similar situation, the cops stopped Patricia and a friend one night because they were walking around the streets at night. When John got a call to go to the station and pick her up, his actions left his neighbors shocked. John got a call to come to the station in the middle of the night. Even back then, he put on his tux before he left. But his violent behavior toward Patricia was what shocked the neighbors. Ed Iliano, who helps Patricia with her acting, told the cops that he had met John List a few times. When he did not like Patricia's interest in acting, he told them that John was scary and gave off bad vibes. After a particularly bad fight, Patricia even told Ed that her father had said he would kill the whole family. These kinds of threats happen more and more often, and sometimes John would even ask his kids if they wanted to be burned or buried. After finding out these things, the police understood that John had probably been planning these murders for a long time. As the probe went on, the police found out that John had already stopped the mail, newspaper, and milk deliveries. Since November, the List family had not been to church, and the school knew that they were taking a break to take care of Helen's sick mother. So, there were no signs in front of the Breeznole mansion to draw people's attention to it. On December 9, 1971, John's car was found parked close to New York's John F. Kennedy International Airport. The parking ticket was from November 10, 1971, and it was a Chevy Impala. The cops thought that John might have taken a plane and probably left the country, but there was no record of him taking a plane. The only thing the officers knew for sure was that John had a 1-month head start wherever he was now. When the autopsy results came back, it was clear that the gun found in John's room at the house was used to kill everyone in the family. Everyone has taken a bullet to the head at least once, except John Jr. 10 bullets hit him in the head, neck, and chest. The cops were confused because they did not understand why John Jr. had it worse than the other family members. On November 12, 1971, the funeral service took place. Alma List was buried in the St. Lawrence Lutheran Cemetery in Frankenmuth, Michigan. Helen, Patricia, John Jr., and Frederick were laid to rest in the Fairview Cemetery in Westfield, New Jersey. On their tombstone it said, There is peace in the eternal valley. On the day of the funeral, many policemen in plain clothes walked around the graveyard hoping to see John there, but he never did. Law enforcement made this case a top priority, and they were determined to catch John List. His picture went to every police station in the country so that everyone could see it. Even as time went on, it was still a secret where John was. It was hard for the agents to believe that no police officer in the country had ever met John. People began to think that John might have killed himself because he felt guilty. Even after working on the case for months, the police could not find any clues or proof that would lead them to John. Over time, the List family murder case went cold. After a few years, the original agents who were working on the List family case went on to do other things. They left the most disturbing case in New Jersey for new agents to solve. Captain Frank Maranka and Detective Bernard Tracy took over the case in 1988. The new investigators took a different approach to solving the case. In April 1988, a show called America's Most Wanted was all over the news because it told stories about crimes that happened all over the country. Everyone was on the edge of their seats during John Walsh's America's Most Wanted, which he hosted. Maranka and Tracy chose to talk to the people who make the show because of how far it goes and how many people watch it. The people who made the show thought that John List's case had been cold for too long and that he was probably dead by now. But Maranka and Tracy did not give up. They kept asking the show's creators to do a John List episode. Frank Bender, a sculptor who had worked with police before, helped the officers make sculptures of the faces of people whose bodies had been dead for a long time before the police found them. Frank only needed the body's head, but this time was different. Frank had to make a model of what John would look like in 1989 based on a picture from more than 18 years ago. Since this was the first case of its kind, John took it very seriously. Before he started making the sculpture, he told the police he wanted to know everything about John. A criminal psychologist was asked to assist Frank in understanding John's character. The psychologist stated that the perpetrator has a history of feeling angry and confined by women, particularly women of their own age or older, or women in positions of authority. Soon, they were able to make a sculpture of what John might look like in 1989. But they were not sure about one thing. They were not sure if John would have started wearing contact lenses or not. If he was not wearing glasses, what kind would he be wearing now? The psychologist who was working on the case thought that John would not care enough about how he looked to switch his glasses for lenses. He also thought that John might have changed his glasses and ended up with thick, dark corn-rimmed glasses to make himself look smarter and more important than he really was. With the help of Richard Walder's profile, psychologists thought that List would wear the same glasses he wore when he was younger to remember him of when he was more successful. The model of what John would look like in the present was finally completed. On May 21, 1989, during a show, John Walsh discussed List's case, stating, "John List was presented as the primary suspect, and all the information about him and his past was shared. Tonight on America's Most Wanted, we have our first case, which happens to be the oldest one we have ever worked on." About 22 million Americans watched the episode, which not only showed John's picture, but also an accurate bust of what people thought John looked like now. The news also talked about the latest events in the case, which quickly got around the country. After that, people from all over the country told the cops over 200 things about John, but one, in particular, stood out: a twist in the story. In Denver, a woman named Wanda Flannery and her daughter, Eva, were watching a special episode on John List aired on America's Most Wanted. As the episode unfolded and more details about John List came to light, Wanda and Eva began to notice striking similarities between John List's description and their neighbor, Bob Clark. Bob shared many characteristics with John, such as being an accountant, a Lutheran, and maintaining a simple yet well-dressed appearance. He was also known for being a quiet person who attended church regularly. As the episode progressed, the portrayal of the sculpture depicting John's present appearance caught their attention, particularly the glasses and jowls, which resembled Bob's features closely. At that moment, Wanda and Eva became convinced that their neighbor, Bob Clark, was, in reality, John List, the wanted fugitive. Their suspicions were confirmed, and it was later discovered that Bob Clark was, indeed, John List, the man they had seen on the television show. The revelation left the community in shock, as they had been living in close proximity to a notorious mass murderer without any inkling of his true identity. On Thursday, June 1st, 1989, about 11 days after the episode on John List aired on America's Most Wanted, Wanda called the cops and told them about her suspicions about Bob Clark. She told them that he and his wife, Dolores Miller, had lived in her area in Denver, Colorado, but had recently moved to Richmond, West Virginia. On the same day, FBI agent Kevin August and his team walked into Bob's office in Richmond and asked him if he was Bob Clark. Agent August approached him and inquired if he was Mr. Clark, to which Bob affirmed that he was. He then proceeded to ask if he was John List, and Bob responded negatively, stating that he was Robert P. Clark. The police were sure that he was lying, and when Bob's fingerprints were found on the gun at the crime scene in 1971, it was clear that he was John List and not Bob Clark. On June 1st, 1989, John was caught and put in jail. The accuracy of the sculpture shocked the officials. Everything about him was the same, except that he had a few more wrinkles than he does now. The psychologist had predicted and picked the glasses he was wearing for the sculpture. When the cops questioned John, he finally told them the truth about the horrible crime and how it happened. He said that he killed his own family members and gave information about how and why he did it. John List was found guilty of 5 murders and given a sentence of life in jail without the chance of parole. He spent the next 18 years of his life in the New Jersey State Prison in Trenton. He died on March 21, 2008, due to the effects of pneumonia. At the time, he was 82 years old. John did not seem to feel bad about what he did until he took his last breath. Westfield locals still think about the murders of the List family, and the case is still one of New Jersey's most disturbing mysteries. Several months after the killings, the mansion where they took place burned down, and a new house was built on the land. Now that their mother was looking over them, the children could sleep peacefully. The story of John List and the brutal murders of his family is still a chilling reminder that people who seem normal can have a lot of evil inside them. What are your thoughts about this case? Let us know in the comments section. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel. Thanks for watching.